Well, good evening. I'm going to get started. I know not everybody is here yet, and I know not everybody can make it live. So I am very grateful if you are watching me now. I am very grateful if you're watching me on catch up. I'm very grateful that you're giving up an hour of your time to spend some time with me. I don't take it lightly that you're here, that you've signed up, and that you've shown up. I'm very grateful for that. And so what I'm going to be sharing with you this evening, I'm hoping will be truly transformational for you and will just give you some hints, some tips, some strategies that will help you on your own healthy brain journey. And so there are maybe many different reasons why you're here. It could be that you're feeling your brain isn't as sharp as it used to be. It could be that you know you need to look after your brain health, but you kind of don't know where to start. It could be that you find the science a bit confusing and a bit inaccessible, or you could actually be at the point where you are actually very worried about your brain health. Whatever your reasons are for being here this evening, I'm very grateful for you being here, and you are all very welcome. And I sincerely hope, as I say, that towards the end of my masterclass this evening, you'll be just that little bit closer to understanding what you can do to help yourself. So I run these masterclasses a lot because sharing this information and guiding and teaching women to optimize their brain health, I think has probably become for me the most important part of my career so far. So I have been in healthcare for 25 years. By profession, I'm an osteopath. I'm a registered osteopath. And so over my years in practice, I have worked with, I have treated, I have had the pleasure of working with hundreds, if not thousands, of women from all ages, all demographics, all backgrounds, all religions. And one thing that I know for sure is that women's health and their health concerns are often not properly well managed. Our symptoms, our pain, our experiences are often brushed aside. And if I told you some of the stories that women have told me over my years in practice, whether that's as teenagers, whether that's their pregnancy journey, whether that's mental health, whether that's menopause, whether that's women who are concerned about their brain health, it would probably break your heart like it breaks mine. And you may well have a story similar to that yourself. So I am putting a stake in the ground that this has to stop, that women need to have the right information. They need to have the right access to healthcare, to know how to improve their healthcare, to have the knowledge to look after themselves and their mums and their aunties and their grandmas and their female colleagues, their female friends. And honestly, brain health is arguably the most important thing that women need to know about at this current point in time. And I'm going to be explaining why I say that and why I say that with such passion, because it really is for me something that a lot of women don't know a lot about. But I really believe that we need to share this information with more women so that they can protect their own mental health. Now, the Dalai Lama, the amazing Dalai Lama, in 2009 said, "The world will be saved by Western women." I would like to think the world will be saved by women in general, not just Western women. But how can we save the world if our brains aren't working properly? Because wouldn't you agree that when our brain is working properly, we make better decisions. We deal with difficulties better. We deal with family, with friends, with work colleagues. We deal better if they are. We know how to look after ourselves better if our brain is working. And that's why I believe it's so important to share this incredible information that I'm going to share with you tonight. And I just want to show you a few statistics. I promise you, I'm not going to bore you with statistics, but the research to me is really, really super important. And I've taken this from the Alzheimer's Organization research website. Amazing amount of research that's done. I am so grateful to all the people who have worked in research, who've managed to accumulate some of this information. But just look at that graph for me, if you would, a second. The orange line is dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And that figure, 2022, dementia became the leading cause of death in the UK. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that dementia is the leading cause of death in the UK. and that 1 in 2 of us will be affected in some way by dementia. Now, that could be ourselves developing it, or it could be a loved one. And this final one, that graph that I'm going to show you, if you look on the right-hand side there, in 2020, dementia killed almost double the amount of women than men. It's the leading cause of death for women, and we have to do something about that. I truly believe we need to do something about that. And I'm very touched by the graph on the left-hand side, which says that 98% of people could improve how they look after their brain health. I would love to know what the other 2% are doing that are managing to look after their brain health so well, because maybe we all need to look after our brain health better. But by the time we reach our 40s, certainly after that, we are all facing some health challenges, aren't we? We may be having a bit of higher blood pressure, a bit of weight gain. And the secrets that I'm going to be sharing with you today, they will help your whole body, but particularly your brain. When I work in osteopathy, we don't just look at the symptom that people come in with, we look at the person as a whole. And I bring that type of looking after people when I'm working with my clients, when I'm helping with their dementia journey and their brain health journey. Because I truly believe that now more than ever, women really need to know how they can look after their brain health, so they can improve their brain health and they can reduce not only their chances of developing dementia, but other lifestyle diseases as well. Because quite high on that graph I showed you earlier was cardiovascular disease, so heart disease. We also really need to be looking at what we can do overall to make our health as productive and as healthy as possible. And so it sounds crazy, doesn't it, that women don't know how to look after their brain health? And I'm going to explain why I believe that's the case and why some of the research that is so incredible can help us on that journey. I'm going to be sharing with you some really powerful strategies that you can use to start your own brain healthy journey, to optimize your own brain health. And then before we finish, I'd like to offer a special invitation to you. Don't worry, I am absolutely not selling you anything on this masterclass. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to share some information with you tonight. And I feel very blessed to be able to impact women's health over the years that I've been in practice. None of what I share with you tonight is fluff or BS. It's all properly science-backed, because science is important to me in my profession as an osteopath. It's all researched and it's all tried and tested, not just on me, but on some of my lovely clients as well. And as I say, I feel very blessed to be able to share this experience with you and with other women that I work with, to help them discover and understand how they can really optimize their brain health. Because your brain is your most precious organ. It's you. Your personality is inside your brain. So your brain is you. And the graphs and the statistics show one side of the story, but I would like to share with you on a more individual level my own personal brain health journey, my own personal brain health story, which is behind the statistics. Because I haven't always felt this positive and this upbeat about dementia and about brain health. I've been through some very challenging times to get to where I am today. And as you heard me say, my practice has been as an osteopath, my experience and my career has been in osteopathy for 25 years. My practice has always had a bias towards women. And about 10 years ago, I decided I want to improve my skill sets. And so I started to do a paediatric course. Now, this course is based in London and I live in Cheshire. So every Monday morning for 2 years, I would get on the 6:30 train at Macclesfield train station. I would travel all the way down to Euston. I would schlep all the way across London to get to the Osteopathic Centre for Children. I would do my days treating patients. We would have lectures, we would have seminars, and then I would come all the way back home. And as well as that, I was running my big multidisciplinary practice, which had myself as osteopaths, and we had other healthcare practitioners with us as well. And I had 2 small children. I have twins, blessed to have children. And so I was looking after them as well. So there was a lot that was going on. And I was finding that I was struggling a bit with this learning. And I've always been very blessed to have a brain that likes to learn, a brain that wants to find out, an inquiring mind. And I've always been very lucky that I've actually done academically very well. And I don't say that to boast and to show off. I say it because as I was doing this course, my brain was not working properly. I was actually quite worried deep down because I was forgetting things. I couldn't remember this complicated pediatric anatomy. I started to forget how to do things. I was failing in some of my exams, and that had never happened to me before. My stress levels were beginning to go off the chart. My anxiety was something I'd never experienced before, and I couldn't focus. Small things seemed to derail me. And I kept thinking, what is happening to my brain? I used to have a brain that worked so well. Is it simply because I'm getting older that this is happening to me? I couldn't understand what was going on with my brain. But there was another, deeper, worrying aspect in my family. Now, you may have seen I have a slightly unusual surname. So the name Curfew comes from the Isle of Man, which is a little island in between England and Ireland, if you don't know where that is. And my parents were born and brought up over there, and they came over in the late 50s, early 60s to study. My mum trained to be a teacher. Huge shout out to any teachers out there. I'm very blessed that we have teachers, because I wouldn't be where I am today without teachers. And my dad trained to be a surgeon. So he was a surgeon in the NHS, and a second big shout out to everybody in the NHS. And my dad stayed in England. We stayed very close to where I now live. And he carved out an amazing career as one of the most respected, most successful, most caring facial surgeons in the northwest of England. He helped so many people come back from facial cancers, from incidents, accidents, putting people together after fights, all kinds of things. He developed all sorts of new and innovative surgeries and operations, and he was a real inspiration. He was very well loved and very well respected, but as I'm sure you can imagine, working in the NHS, even back then, was not the easiest. It was a very stressful job. He had patient after patient after patient coming through. There was, even back then, there was the challenges of not enough money, not enough staff, staff cuts, staff shortages. And he never really lived without some kind of stress in his life. He would often operate for long hours, so he wouldn't eat regularly. He might just catch a quick thing to eat here and there. Sleep wasn't great. He could get called out in the middle of the night if a patient needed his help. And after he'd retired, he needed to have a hip replacement because those years and years of standing doing that delicate surgery had taken its toll on his hips. And the surgery itself was very successful. But it was after that that we started to notice things weren't quite right with him. He seemed confused. He would get quite muddled, and he would get myself and my sister mixed up. And as time went on, we began to see other changes in his behaviour. He would get angry at the TV for no reason. He would get confused with simple tasks that he used to be able to do very easily. And after a couple of years, we got the devastating news that he had Alzheimer's disease. Now, for a medical man, he took the diagnosis remarkably well. He did everything he was supposed to do. He listened to the experts. He took the drugs that didn't work. But nothing could stop his inevitable decline. And every time I would go back to see my parents, it'd just be these little signs that he was deteriorating a little bit more. It might take him longer to recognise me. I remember going back home one year and my mum had put little stickers on cupboards saying things like fridge, glasses, cutlery. I'm sure you get the picture. So while I was doing my training and I was struggling with my own mind, I was witnessing this happening to my father, his brain deteriorating. And I'm sure you can imagine what was going through my mind. And I want to share with you a very poignant moment for us, which was Christmas 2017. And we were in my parents' kitchen and we were about to have Christmas dinner. And as was tradition in my family, my mum asked my dad to carve the turkey because he was a surgeon after all. And so my mum handed him the carving knife and fork, and he just stood there with the turkey in front of him. And he just stood there. He just stood there, not doing anything. And I remember looking at him, and I will never forget the look on his face. He was totally confused, totally helpless and desperate because he couldn't remember how to carve a turkey. My brilliant father, the incredibly skilled facial surgeon who'd helped so many people, couldn't remember how to carve a turkey. And in that moment, I truly understood the horror of what happens when you lose your brain health. I understood what it does to people, how it robs them of their skills and their abilities. But I will be honest, I also had the thought, is that going to happen to me? Is that my future I'm seeing in front of me? Is it already happening to me because of what was happening to my brain when I was doing my course? Am I looking at my future? Is this going to happen to my sister, to my brother? Are my children going to experience what I'm experienced? And when he passed away in 2020, I had those thoughts again. Is that going to happen to me? And that thought was horrifying, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And I just knew I couldn't let that be my future. If there was anything that I could do to help myself, I knew I had to do something. And as you heard me say, I've been an osteopath for 25 years. And one of our guiding principles is that we don't just treat symptoms. We get to the root cause of the problem and sort it out from there. So I decided I was going to use that way of thinking to find out everything I could possibly find out about brain health, about cognitive decline, about dementia, about Alzheimer's disease, the possible causes, what the research is, the drugs that had been developed. So I think it'd be fair to say I became like a woman obsessed, and I would scour the internet for hours looking at the latest piece of research. I would walk my dogs with my AirPods in, listening to podcasts from experts, from the Alzheimer's Society, from neuroscientists, from researchers. I borrowed book after book after book from the library. You can probably see some of them in my library behind me. The ones that I really thought were worth having, I bought them because I was on an absolute mission to discover whatever I could to help myself. And what I discovered blew my mind. I can't tell you how much research, proven research, is already out there with the keys to helping us prevent this horrible disease and keep our brain healthy. So I started to look at this research. What was it telling me? What were some of the things that I could do? Could I introduce some of these changes into my life? A lot was to do with lifestyle and habits and choices. So I tried to introduce some of these little strategies into my life. And I found that what was good for your brain is good for your body. And my life started to transform. I started to feel much less stressed. I have much more energy. My weight improved. My anxiety went. Now, I don't know what the future holds for me. And I know that there is nothing that we can absolutely say is going to ever stop us from getting dementia. But what I do know is that I feel better knowing with this amazing research that I'm doing whatever I can to help myself. That whatever happens to me, I'm doing the best for my body, and I will continue to do the best for my body and my brain because it makes me feel better physically, mentally, spiritually than a lot of people my age. And I don't say that to go, oh, look at me, aren't I amazing? I do it because if I can do it, other people can do it. I wasn't born with some super skill at this. I'm simply a woman on a mission to help myself and now to help other women improve their brain health and avoid cognitive decline. I sleep better now. I am certainly less stressed. I am certainly less tired. And I feel more joy. I also know if I start to veer off track, if I start to go back into some of my not so good habits, I know how I can get myself back on track by using some of the strategies and the tips that I'm going to be teaching you today or sharing with you today. And don't get me wrong, I am still very much a work in progress. There are days when I don't want to do the things that I know I should do, but I use the skills that I share with my clients, and I'm going to share with you today to help me get back on track. And I still scour the internet for more research. One of my friends sent me a link today to another article about cholesterol and dementia, for example. I still listen to podcasts and I still read books, all about health experts and all on social media, because I believe in keeping up to date with the latest information so my clients don't have to. I see myself as a bit of a translator between a lot of the complicated science that, to be honest, a lot of people can't understand because they don't have a background in science, and that's understandable. And maybe they don't have time, and maybe they don't want to, but they do want to have a healthier brain, a stronger brain. So I'm committed to giving women the tools to empower themselves to start their own healthy brain journey so they can change their brain health from this point onwards and to what I call future-proof your health. I want to give the women I work with, and you included in that, lifelong self-care skills that will help to keep you out of the GP surgery, out of nursing homes. And don't get me wrong, my dad had amazing care. We were very, very lucky, but we didn't want him in the nursing home. We wanted him with us, spending time with us. And that's the same for you. I would love for you to live healthy and happy with your loved ones, with your friends, doing the things that you want to do, not spending all your hard-earned cash on your healthcare or nursing home fees, spending your money on whatever you want to spend it on, giving it all away to charity, having amazing experiences, buying holidays for your grandkids, whatever it is. But I'm dedicated to delivering strategies, insights, and information that women need to optimize their brain health. Because what sort of a person would I be if I didn't share that? Now I have that experience, now I have that knowledge. What kind of person would I be if I didn't share that? And the women that I've worked with have had some incredible transformations. And they range from women with children. I have a lot of women who have a partner who has dementia, and they want to make sure that their own brain health stays strong. So I work with women like that. And I work with women who just want to look after their own brain health. There's a whole variety of people that I work with. So again, thank you so much for being here. I very, very much appreciate you spending the time with me. And I'm going to share with you now the little secrets that we're going to discover about how you can look after your brain health. And then if you stay with me to the end, as I say, I'm going to share a little invitation with you on how you can start your own healthy brain journey. So I hope we're all excited to find out a bit more information this evening. So let me start with secret one. So secret one is learning to love your brain. So how do you love your brain? And why is loving your brain important? So let me ask you a question. How healthy is your brain? We don't know, do we? I don't know how healthy my brain is. We don't really know what it looks like, apart from that image of the brain on the screen there. We don't really know what our brain looks like, do we? If we look at other parts of our body, we can see if our hair needs a wash, or if our skin is a bit dry, or if our trousers get a bit tight. We can feel that, but we don't know anything like that about our brains. Unless we go and have a lot of scans and extra tests, we really don't know how healthy our brain is. So how can you love something that you don't really know what it looks like? You don't know how healthy it is. And sometimes the only time we actually think about our brain is if we have a headache, because I know, having been an osteopath for many years, and when people get headaches, they automatically think that there's something wrong with their brain. Very, very rarely the case, but that's what people think. So let me share with you a way that you can start to just have an idea of how healthy your brain is. And that's to ask yourself on a regular basis, how do I feel? How do you feel on a regular basis? Because as the great Tony Robbins says, the quality of your life is the quality of our emotions. So I want you to have a think for a minute. What would you say are the regular feelings that you experience every day? And I'm going to explain why this is so important for brain health. Would you say you feel stressed, or you feel anxious, or you feel worried most of the time? Or would you say you feel happy, or you feel energized, or you feel full of life? Because how we feel every day has a huge effect on our brain health. And however you go through life, if you go through life feeling very anxious and very stressed and very worried, that's often how your life manifests, because emotions, they are basically chemicals. They're chemicals in our body that make us behave and make us feel in a certain way. So if you're going to improve the quality of your brain health, you may need what I like to call an emotional upgrade. So what is the chemical soup that your brain is sitting in? Is it a beautiful, clear, healthy, happy, lovely soup that's making you feel great and energized and grateful? Or is it what I would imagine would be like a more toxic, green, nasty soup that's you're tired, you're stressed, you're anxious, you're worried? Because that chemical soup has a really effective, can have a really big effect rather on our brains. Because if we are always having negative emotions, all the research shows that that really impacts our brain health. And one of the worst emotions for that is stress. And why stress? Because the stress hormone's only supposed to be in our system for a very, very short period of time. It's supposed to be able to get us out of a situation, but not long-term stress. And long-term stress is one of the most common reasons for people to go to their doctors nowadays. And all the science is showing us that long term, that leads to some serious health problems. And there are many reasons as to why. And unfortunately, this evening, I don't have the time to go into all that kind of information with you. But it is one of the most important things. And when I'm working with my ladies, we start often with talking about stress, because it is so prevalent today in our society. So what are you doing in terms of loving your brain? Can you see, just for a moment or two, how those regular emotions, if you're constantly feeling that way, how that might be affecting you? And it can be hard for us to love every part of us, particularly as women. There's always bits of us that we don't like so much, that are a bit wobbly or a bit wrinkly. And we've definitely never been taught how to love our brains. And I have many different tools in my toolkit. And together, when I'm working with my lovely ladies, we find the ones that work for you. And we introduce those into your life, just like I did in my life. I tried different things to see what would work with me. Because not everybody is the same. Everybody has different lives that they lead and different ways that they like to live their life. So when women work with me, it's not a painting by numbers. I don't hand you a sheet of paper and you go away and do all of those. No, we dig very deep and make sure that the strategies that I give to you are specific for you. So the secret number 2 is stopping doing those things that harm your brain. So if you have a think about it, what might be some of the things that are harming your brain? And this is really important here, because all the research that I've read and that is still coming out nowadays is saying how important it is to prevent all the different illnesses that cause harm, because dementia is really a collection, part of a collection of diseases, and there's a lot of interaction between them. So in order for us to avoid our brain health from declining, our cognitive decline and dementia, we really want to avoid all those diseases like diabetes, like high blood pressure, like heart disease. I put smoking in there as well, even though I know smoking is not an illness, but it's very, very bad for our health. So if you're looking at lifestyle factors, looking at what you drink, what you eat, or what you don't drink, or what you don't eat, whether you move your body, whether you exercise, how do you spend your spare time? These things are all really important. But it is quite hard to do this on your own, because I bet you could probably write down a whole list of things that you know maybe are not the best for your health and your brain health. And obviously, I don't have time to cover, again, all of these today, but I'd just like to go back to talking about stress, because most people, when they come to work with me, that is one of their top things that they are struggling with, is stress. It was certainly a big factor for me back 10 years ago when I was entering my brain health journey. And I just want to put a stake in the ground for the moment for you and say it is absolutely not your fault if you are feeling stressed or anxious a lot of the time. We live in a very stressful world. And I don't just necessarily mean in our personal worlds, but in the world at large. So it's absolutely not your fault if you have these feelings of stress and anxiety all the time, because we are not taught how to deal with this. Nobody teaches us really how to deal with emotions and stress management. I didn't have a stress management lesson at school, and I know my kids didn't, and I'm sure many of you didn't either. We're not really taught how to do this. We're just sort of expected to get on with it and deal with it on our own. And I think particularly as women, we kind of expect ourselves to be able to do all of this. So stress management is a really, really important part of looking after and loving your brain, because chronic stress is very damaging to your brain and to your body as well. And as you've just heard me say, if you're wanting to keep your brain healthy, if you're wanting to avoid cognitive decline, we need to look at all these lifestyle things that we're doing that will help us to keep our brain healthy. So it's really beneficial to get some control off your stress. Now, you probably already know this, but how many of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, put off looking after ourselves? We say, oh, we'll do that tomorrow. I'll sort out my stress tomorrow. I'll cut those bad things out from my diet tomorrow. We are all guilty of that. I've been guilty of that in the past as well. But remember, life is short. And do I know that only too well with my own poor father? Life is short. And the science tells us that the issues that cause our brain to decline start many, many years before we notice the symptoms. I have a couple of books here by an incredible woman called Dr. Lisa Mosconi, incredible scientist. And one of the things that I've heard her say many, many times, and it really resonates with me, and I hope it resonates with you, is that dementia is a disease of old age that starts in midlife. So we need to think about our choices much, much earlier on than maybe we were thinking about it. There is always time. There is always time. Even some of the research I've read recently is saying that even in your 50s and your 60s and potentially your 70s, you can still do things to look after your brain health. I know when I was doing my training 30 odd years ago to be an osteopath, we were taught back then, your brain is fixed. And as you get older, it will just decline and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, thank goodness for the scientists, because we now know that's not true. And we now know that there is loads that we can do to look after our own brain health. And those, again, are some of the things that I share with my women. How can you improve your own brain health? And women love this stuff because they love to think that they're looking after their own brain. So what are the choices that maybe you're making every day? What are the choices that's maybe harming your brain? And how could we look at that? And how could we work together to make it more straightforward for you to know how you can stop doing those things? Because when women work with me, I don't just tell you how to do things. That's not how I work. Because of the training that I've done and because of my expertise, I actually help to retrain your brain. So you think differently and you behave differently. And that's really the key, because we all know we shouldn't eat sugar. We all know we should exercise more. We all know we need to get good sleep. But actually putting those things into practice can be quite challenging. So we need to have a bit of an upgrade in our head. We need to have a bit of a change in the way that our mind thinks. Because I want you to be the healthiest version of you, the happiest version of you, the person with the clearest mind, the sharpest brain. Because as I say, at some point, there isn't a tomorrow. Have you heard the expression, when is the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the next best time to plant a tree? Today. So you can start today. You can start to put those roots down today so that you will be looking at a much brighter, much brain healthier future. Is this all making sense so far? Is everybody following me? Hopefully you are. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. And then the final secret is to start doing the things that help your brain. Because we are much happier, we are much healthier if we have a holistic perspective of ourselves, of how we're looking at everything that we can do to help our brain. And if there are things that you're doing that you maybe think you need to cut out of your life, what are the things that you can do to start helping your brain? Now, I would like to suggest that you are an intelligent, you are a free-thinking woman, and you probably know some of the things that you should be doing. But would you admit it's not always easy to do them, even when we know we should? And that's because we're creatures of habit. We tend to stick with what we know and what we do, even when we know maybe it's not the best for us, because, as I say, we are creatures of habit. But sometimes we genuinely don't know. And I've learned so much over the past few years when kind of delving really deep into the research and discovering what these amazing scientists have done for us. The things that are easy for us to put into practice aren't necessarily the simplest things. It may be that people need a bit of help and a bit of guidance. But the good news is it's always easier with support. You don't have to do this on your own. I didn't do this journey on my own. And sometimes we get a lot of expert advice, don't we, from Bob down the pub or Auntie June, who's read this particular thing, or in my kids' generation, the good old social media. And I would just encourage you to be careful where you get your sources of information from. And as I said before, anything I teach, any strategies that I work with women is all properly scientifically researched and as up to date as I can possibly get it, because that's important to me. It's important that the women I work with get the most up to date information so that they can absolutely optimize their brain health. And everything, as I say, it's unique for the individual because everybody is different. I know that from my 25 years of being in practice. One person coming in with one symptoms and someone coming in with a similar problem, they have very different outcomes. They can have very different ways that I need to work with them. And it doesn't have to be huge steps. This sometimes worries women that I'm working with as well, that I'm going to get them to do all kinds of stuff that's going to be very difficult for them to do. I'm not going to get you to go to the gym 7 days a week. I'm not going to completely overhaul your diet. But small, easy steps lead to big changes. And that's really where the difference with me, when you're working with me, that's where it comes from. We make these small steps that along the way make for big changes. And this is probably one of my favourite quotes, because prevention is the ultimate weapon. And to fight a disease after it's occurred is like digging a well when one's thirsty or forging weapons when the war has begun. He must have been a very forethinking gentleman, the Yellow Emperor of 3rd century China. So my question to you is, what are you doing or not doing to help your own brain health? And if you knew none of this, there is absolutely no judgment from me at all, because this is why I share this information. This is why I'm so passionate about it, because I went to a business meeting recently and I was sharing some of this information at a business meeting. And I think it would be pretty fair to say every single woman that I spoke to did not know that dementia can potentially be prevented, or that there are things that they can do, that we can do. And it was a massive aha for them. And so this is why this information is so important. This is why I'm so passionate about sharing this. As I said before, what kind of person would I be if I had this information and I wasn't sharing it with you? So I'm sure you're here because you wanted to make a difference. You wanted to make a difference to your own health. And what would it mean to you to know that you are doing everything you possibly can to future-proof your own brain health? So those are the 3 secrets that we've learned: learning how to love your brain, stopping doing the things that are harming your brain, and starting to do the things that are helping your brain. And you might be feeling a little bit like that. Apologies if you are, if I've just thrown a lot of information at you. But imagine if you felt like I was telling you about my experience, if you felt vibrant, if you felt empowered, if you felt that you had support, if you felt you had a path that you could walk along with some guidance that would be a nice, clear plan of action for you. And you're probably saying, okay, sounds great, Liz, but how do I do this? And you have two options. You can do it alone because the research is out there. You can certainly go and borrow some of my books if you wish to, or you can do it with a mentor and with a community to support you. Because I believe as women, we are always stronger when we have a community behind us. And I've just put on there it's a little graphic of the kind of things that I talk about with my amazing clients. And as I said earlier, I have the privilege of working with many amazing women who, like you, want to look after their brain health. And I would just love to share with you the experience of one of my clients who's called Sarah. And what we did with Sarah was she, as a teacher in her late 40s, school teacher, mum of two teenagers, so stressful job, stressful home life. And she came to one of my masterclasses and she said to me, I think I need to come and talk to you. And I said, well, that's great. How can I help? And what she was saying to me was she felt like she wasn't in control of her life. She'd lost her mojo. She didn't know who she was anymore. She'd put on weight. She was constantly stressed. Her blood pressure was going through the roof. And she was really honest with me. And she said, I think I'm starting with Alzheimer's disease. And I said, well, I think that's quite a bold statement to say. Can you tell me why you think that? And she said her grandmother had had it. Her mum, she believed, was developing it. And she was really worried that it was going to happen to her because, like me, she'd heard, it may well be hereditary and your brain will just decline as you get older. And she was beginning to hear how, as she gets older, her brain might not be quite as good as it was before. And she was almost starting to look out for those things. She was starting to look out for the things that were maybe give her the clues that she was developing some kind of cognitive decline. The classic is walking into a room and forgetting where you've put your keys. She was finding life difficult. She was always tired. She was struggling with sleep. And a bit like me, she said her stress levels and anxiety were off the charts. Sounded very much like my story. So she decided that she wanted to get some help because she knew she wasn't going to be able to do it on her own. She knew what she kind of needed to do, but she knew she wasn't going to be able to give up the bad food choices without some support. She knew she wasn't going to suddenly be able to do a 5K run, having been a couch potato for the past 10 years. So she came and joined me on my program. And we looked at different aspects of her life. We looked at how was she loving her brain? How was she feeling on a regular basis? We looked at how she was managing her stress and what we could do in those times when she felt out of control and when she felt overwhelmed. Overwhelm is a word I hear a lot. A lot of women say that to me. I just feel totally overwhelmed. But we did it in a way that was achievable for her. So what sort of things did we put into place? So if you look at my little graphic there, we often start with stress because if I can help women reduce their stress and recharge their batteries, everything else becomes a lot more straightforward. So we put in small, achievable steps for her. How was she spending her time? Was she doing the things that were harming her brain or helping her brain? We did a lot on emotional management with her because when your stress and your emotions are more stable, your life runs better. Like I was saying at the beginning, when the Dalai Lama said Western women are going to save the world, we can only do that if our brains are working properly, if we're thinking clearly, if we're making good decisions. And if we don't get these sudden spikes in emotion, if we don't get these huge stressful spikes, your stress hormone will be more in control, which over the long term is so much better for your health. And some strategies worked well, others we had to tweak. And that's the benefit of one-to-one support with me, is because we can do that. We can make these little changes. And she knew really that she just needed that next step so she could create these changes. But now they're part of her life. And she will sometimes text me and she'll say some of the things that she's been doing and how she's feeling. And it's so lovely to see that transformation. It was so lovely to see where she was and where she became, what she became. She didn't feel totally overwhelmed with everything that she knew that she should be doing. with trying to understand all the different stuff that's out there. She has a program that works for her, that she knew what she was doing. And like me, she just felt happier. She actually said to me, I've got my mojo back. And that just almost made me burst into tears, because the thought that we've managed to get her to a place from where she was feeling overwhelmed, she felt her brain was really declining, to where she is now. And she's feeding the best parts of her, the parts of her that are nourishing her body, the parts of her that are nourishing her brain. So I hope, as I've shown you on this masterclass, that this work is really, really important to me. And I know, for whatever reason, I've been put on this planet to guide and support women as they transition into being older, but older doesn't have to mean unhealthier. I would love to be able to put control back into your own hands, back into the hands of women, so they can control their own future health, that they can trust themselves, that they have the skills to do this. Yes, you might need a bit of guidance and a bit of support from me, but the women who come to my events are my people. They are the people that I love to work with. And that's why I always like to offer the next step, because if you felt inspired by anything that I've said this evening, or if you just want to know a little bit more, I've developed a call, which is just very, very simple. A quick 30-minute chat with me. Again, I am not selling you anything, because I know in that 30-minute call that we can just start to work on some simple strategies for you. And many women, as I said before, they feel quite isolated and they don't know what to do, and they feel like they should be able to do this all alone. So I've created what I've called the Brain Boost Call. Totally free session, as I say, where we see if we are the right fit to do a little quick 30-minute conversation with each other. I sit down with you one-to-one, and together we work out where you are on your own health journey. So I have some spots open in my calendar for November and December, for those of you who might be interested in a little bit more support. And as I say, this is totally free. We start the process of giving you some individualized tools that you can immediately put into practice that are going to work for you. Because what I have seen and what I experienced, not just for me, but for the women that I've worked with, is that when women get support on their health journey, a few things happen. Firstly, they stop feeling anxious all the time, and that's just a game changer for most people. Secondly, they have more energy. Stress is exhausting. If you are stressed all the time, you are exhausted. Thirdly, and this is probably my favourite, they feel like themselves again. They feel like they've got themselves back. It was a big one for me, I know, when I started my brain transformation. And then they see the positive impact that these changes have on their family, on their life, on their work. So that's why I offer this opportunity. And if you decide to take me up on this free offer and it's not right to do any more work with me, that's absolutely fine. At least I will know you have some strategies that you can take away and you can work with straight away. Because I know sometimes women feel that they don't have the time to invest in mentorship and help. But I would just love for you to keep something in mind, and that is, when you find the right person to work with, and maybe that's me, life improves. Because when life gets difficult, as it will, when challenges happen, as they do, you've got someone to support you. You've got that protective shell around you. You're not on your own. You don't have to figure this all out by yourself. And when life is good, it's even better because you can share it. And I love hearing the transformation stories of the women that I work with. So I am going to pop my link in the chat if anybody would love to come and, there we go, pop it in the chat there for you. So for those of you who have felt moved and inspired to take control of your health, your future health, as quickly as possible, do come and have a conversation with me. And I'm just going to finish off by asking you, as we're getting close to the end of 2024, I can't quite believe it myself, how old are you going to be next year? And how do you want to show up at your next birthday? Do you want to be in a different place than you are now? Because I really want to help you if that's you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I really, really hope I will be talking to at least some of you individually, because it would mean a lot to me if I can just help one more person improve their brain health. For me, that would be an absolute blessing, because as I hope you've seen this evening, this is a real passion for me to be able to help women. And I just want to finish off by showing you just some of the things that women have said about working with me. And again, I don't say this to show off or to be arrogant, but it just fills my heart with joy when I see these types of testimonials that women have really found such a difference in looking after their brain health. And if we look back, if you think about those slides that I put up to start with, dementia, the #1 cause of death, and it affects twice as many women as men. And I often get asked, and if I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards that you might have. And I often get asked why women, and there's lots of different ideas as to why. For the moment, it's just important that we know we can do something to start that process of looking after our brain health. And this is my why. So this is a picture of my dad, and this is a picture of my son. My son is now nearly 19 years old. We don't know how happy he would be about me showing that photograph of him. But this is my dad, and I dedicate my masterclasses to him, just to say thank you for everything he did for me. And I hope that the horror that was his experience with dementia won't be mine. It won't be yours. And if I can help other people not develop dementia, my vision is a world where dementia doesn't exist anymore. And my mission is to help as many women as possible, myself included, not develop dementia. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time this evening. If anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them. Any queries or anything I've not made clear, just put your hand up, unmute yourself, say hi. I will pause the recording so that people, if there's a personal question that they want to ask, you're more than welcome to ask me.